Maya Chen was 10 years old, and if you asked anyone who knew her, they'd tell you she was the kind of kid who seemed older than she actually was. Not in a bad way, just in that quiet, responsible way some children develop when life asks them to grow up a little faster than their friends. She lived in a small apartment on the 4th floor of a building that always smelled like someone's cooking. Some days it was curry, other days it was garlic and tomatoes. Tonight it smelled like the fried rice from apartment 4C, and Maya's stomach rumbled even though she'd already eaten dinner. The apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in at the same time, and a living room that served as everything else: homework space, play area, TV room, and on really hot summer nights, the place where they'd all sleep with the windows open and a fan pointed directly at their faces. Right now, Maya sat on the carpet in that living room, her math textbook open in front of her. She was working through long division problems, the kind that went on and on with remainders that never seemed to end neatly. She liked math, actually. There was something comforting about how it always had a right answer. You either got it correct or you didn't. No gray area, no confusion. Her younger brother, Eli, sat at the small dining table a few feet away. He was 7 years old, with round cheeks that still held on to that baby softness, even though he insisted he was a big kid now. His tongue stuck out slightly from the corner of his mouth, the way it always did when he was concentrating really hard on something. He was working on homework too. A book report about his favorite animal. It was supposed to be 3 pages long, which might not sound like much, but for Eli, 3 pages was like climbing a mountain. Writing didn't come easy to him. Neither did reading, or spelling, or most things that happened in a classroom, if Maya was being honest. Their mom was asleep in her bedroom. She worked as a nurse's aide at the county hospital, pulling double shifts most weeks because the bills didn't care if she was tired. She'd come home at 7 that evening, heated up leftover chicken and rice for the kids, made sure they'd started their homework, and then collapsed into bed. In 5 hours, she'd have to wake up and go back for the night shift. Maya had learned not to wake her unless it was absolutely necessary. Like the time Eli had fallen off his bike and needed stitches, or when the smoke detector went off because Maya tried to make grilled cheese and forgot to turn off the stove. But for regular stuff, for everyday stuff, Maya had learned to handle it. That's just how things were. Had been for 2 years now, ever since their dad left. One day he was there, the next day he wasn't. And Maya's mom sat her down and explained that sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense to anyone but themselves. Maya remembered nodding like she understood, even though she didn't. Not really. She still didn't. Maya? Eli's voice pulled her back to the present. How do you spell environment? Maya looked up from her math problems. Eli's paper was spread out in front of him, half a page filled with his large, crooked handwriting. He gripped his pencil so hard his knuckles were white. Sound it out first, Maya said, because that's what their mom always told him. What do you hear? Viren. Close, it's environment. Break it into parts. They worked through it together, letter by letter. This was normal now. Every evening after Maya finished her own homework, she'd help Eli with his. Sometimes it took 10 minutes. Sometimes it took 2 hours. Tonight was looking like a 2-hour night. Eli had chosen to write about tigers. He loved tigers. Had loved them ever since their class took a field trip to the zoo last year, and he'd stood in front of the tiger enclosure for so long the teacher had to drag him away. He'd checked out every library book about tigers the school had. He knew that tigers were endangered, that they lived in Asia, that they were the biggest cats in the world, that their stripes were like fingerprints. No 2 tigers had the exact same pattern, but knowing all that information and writing it down on paper were 2 very different things. What comes next? Maya asked, sliding over to sit beside him at the table. Eli looked at his paper. I want to say that tigers are carnivores? Good, that's right, carnivores. That means they eat meat. I know that, Eli said, a little defensive. He hated when people thought he didn't know things just because he couldn't write them down fast. I know you know. I'm just making sure you're going to explain it in your report. For the next hour they worked together. Maya didn't write anything for him. She'd never do that. But she sat beside him, helping him sound out words, reminding him where periods and capital letters went, encouraging him when he got frustrated and wanted to give up. This is stupid, Eli said at one point, throwing his pencil down. I hate writing. You don't hate writing. You hate how hard it feels right now. Same thing. Not the same thing. Maya picked up the pencil and handed it back to him. She'd learned this from watching their mom. You couldn't let him give up. If you let him give up once, it became easier to give up the next time and the time after that, until giving up was just what he did. Tell me what you want to say about tigers hunting, Maya prompted. Just say it out loud first. Tigers hunt at night because they can see in the dark and they sneak up on their food. Okay, perfect. Now write that. By 9 o'clock, Eli had finished 2.5 pages. His hand hurt. His eyes were tired. But he'd done it. He'd really done it. Can I draw a picture? He asked. Your teacher said you could add a drawing if you wanted to. Eli's whole face lit up. The tired disappeared. He grabbed the crayons and spent another 20 minutes drawing a tiger, complete with orange and black stripes and white whiskers. It wasn't perfect, but it was his, and he was proud of it. Maya helped him put all 3 pages carefully into a folder, a purple folder with a label that said Eli Chen, Room 12. He tucked it into his backpack, right in the front pocket where it would be safe. You worked really hard tonight, Maya told him as they got ready for bed. They shared a bedroom, bunk bed squeezed against one wall. Mrs. Patterson is going to be really impressed. You think so? I know so. Eli climbed up to the top bunk. Maya took the bottom. Through the wall, they could hear their neighbor's TV playing too loud, some show with a laugh track. Maya? Eli's voice came from above her in the darkness. Yeah? Thanks for helping me. That's what big sisters are for. Maya? Yeah? Do you think Mom would be proud of me? Maya's throat felt tight. She's always proud of you, Eli, always. She heard him shift around up there, getting comfortable. Within minutes, his breathing became slow and steady. He was asleep. Maya lay awake a little longer, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about how good it would feel for Eli to turn in that homework, how maybe Mrs. Patterson would say something nice, how maybe Eli would feel good about school for once instead of feeling like he was always behind, always struggling, always not quite good enough. These were the things Maya thought about at 10 years old. How to help her brother, how to make things easier for her mom, how to keep their small family from falling apart at the seams. She was just a kid, but somehow she'd become so much more than that. The next morning started the way most mornings did in the Chen apartment. Maya's alarm went off at 6:30. She reached over and slapped it quiet, then lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling and gathering the energy to start another day. She could hear her mom moving around in the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled. A pan clanked against the stove. Her mom was making eggs, probably. She always tried to make them a hot breakfast before school, even when she'd only gotten 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Maya climbed down from her bunk and looked up at Eli. He was still asleep, one arm hanging over the edge of the bed, mouth open, a little bit of drool on his pillow. Eli, she whispered. Time to get up. Nothing, Eli. Louder this time. Come on. We have school. He groaned and rolled over, pulling his blanket over his head. Maya sighed. This was also part of the morning routine. Eli was not a morning person. She gave his mattress a shake. Eli Chen, get up right now or you're not getting any breakfast. That did it. Food was always a good motivator. Eli's head popped out from under the blanket, his hair sticking up in 12 different directions. I'm up. I'm up. They got dressed. Maya pulled on jeans and a blue t-shirt that was starting to get a little too small for her, but still fit okay if she didn't raise her arms too high. Eli put on his favorite shirt, the one with a dinosaur on it that he wore at least twice a week. In the kitchen, their mom had made scrambled eggs and toast. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but she smiled when they came in. Morning. Babies. We're not babies, Eli said automatically, but he let her kiss the top of his head anyway. They ate quickly. The school bus came at 7:20. Which meant they had to leave the apartment by 7:15 to get down to the corner in time. Their mom packed their lunches while they ate. Peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices, a granola bar each. You both have everything for school? She asked, sliding their lunch bags across the counter. Yes, Maya said. Eli, homework? In my backpack, Eli said proudly. I finished my book report. Maya helped me. Their mom's eyes softened as she looked at Maya. You're a good sister. Maya felt that familiar mixture of pride and weight. She liked being helpful, but sometimes she wished she could just be a kid who only worried about her own homework and her own problems. 7:15. Time to go. They grabbed their backpacks, called goodbye to their mom, and headed out the door. Down the hallway, down 4 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again, and out onto the street where the morning air was cool and smelled like car exhaust and the bakery 2 blocks over. They walked to the bus stop together. A few other kids from their building were already there. Older kids mostly. High schoolers who ignored the elementary school kids completely. The bus pulled up right on time. Yellow and loud and smelling like vinyl seats and too many bodies in one space. Maya and Eli climbed on and found seats near the middle, not too far back where the big kids sat, not too far forward where the kindergartners cried sometimes. It was a 20-minute ride to school. Eli pulled out a library book about sharks and flipped through the pictures. Maya stared out the window and watched the neighborhood slide by. The corner store where they sometimes bought candy. The park with the broken swings. The mural of a phoenix painted on the side of a building that someone told her was supposed to represent their neighborhood rising from hard times. They got to school at 7:45. The parking lot was already full of cars and buses and kids running around before the bell rang. Maya and Eli split up. Different grades meant different parts of the building. "See you after school," Maya called. "Bye." Eli ran off toward the primary wing, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. Maya went to her own classroom, dropped her stuff at her desk, and tried to focus on the day ahead. Math quiz, reading comprehension, science project presentations, normal 5th grade stuff. But somewhere in the back of her mind, she was thinking about Eli, hoping his day would go well, hoping Mrs. Patterson would like his report, hoping he'd come home smiling for once instead of quiet and defeated. The day passed. Maya aced her math quiz. She gave her science presentation about the water cycle and got an A-, which she was pretty happy about. At lunch, she sat with her friend Katie, and they talked about the new movie that was coming out and whether their moms would let them go see it together. For a few hours, Maya was just a regular 10-year-old kid, and it felt nice. But then the school day ended. 3:15. The buses loaded up. Maya waited at their usual meeting spot for Eli to come out of his building. She waited and waited. Other kids streamed past. The first few buses started pulling away. Where was he? Maya felt the first flutter of worry in her stomach. Eli was never late. He was always one of the first ones out, running toward her with his backpack bouncing, ready to tell her about his day. Finally, she saw him. But something was wrong immediately. His head was down. He was walking slowly, and when he got close enough for her to see his face, her heart sank. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. "Eli? What happened?" He didn't answer, just walked right past her toward the bus. Maya followed, her mind racing. Had someone been mean to him? Had he gotten in trouble? Had something happened at recess? They got on the bus, found seats. The moment they sat down, Eli's face crumpled. "I can't find it," he whispered, and his voice cracked on the words. "Find what?" "My homework, my folder." "Maya, I can't find it anywhere." The flutter of worry in Maya's stomach turned into a cold, hard knot. "What do you mean you can't find it?" "It's gone. I looked everywhere. In my backpack, in my desk, in the coat area. It's just gone." Maya's mind raced back to last night. She'd watched him put the folder in his backpack. She'd seen him zip it up. But then what? What had happened between last night and this morning? Maybe it fell out at home, she suggested, trying to keep her voice calm even though her own heart was starting to beat faster. "Maybe it's still in the apartment somewhere. But I put it in my backpack," Eli insisted. "I know I did." The bus ride home felt like the longest 20 minutes of Maya's life. Eli stared at his hands the whole time, his shoulders hunched, looking smaller than he actually was. Maya tried to think, tried to remember. Had she seen the folder this morning? She couldn't remember. Everything had been so rushed, so normal, she hadn't been paying attention. When they got off the bus and walked into their building, Maya was already forming a plan. They'd go straight home and search everywhere. Under the couch, behind the TV, in the bathroom, everywhere. They'd find it. They had to. Their mom wouldn't be home for hours. She was working the day shift. Wouldn't be back until almost dinner time, which meant Maya and Eli had the apartment to themselves. Which was usually fine, normal even. But right now it felt heavy. Too much responsibility. They climbed the 4 flights of stairs. Eli didn't say a word. Maya unlocked the door with her key, the one she wore on a string around her neck so she wouldn't lose it. The apartment looked exactly like they'd left it that morning. Dishes from breakfast in the sink. Their mom's work shoes by the door. Everything normal. Everything fine, except somewhere in this apartment Eli's homework was missing. 3 pages he'd worked so hard on. 3 pages that had taken 2 hours and so much effort and tears and frustration. Okay, Maya said, trying to sound confident and in control like she imagined a grown-up would sound. Let's search everywhere. You check your room. I'll check out here. Eli dropped his backpack and immediately started tearing through their bedroom. Maya could hear him opening drawers, looking under beds, checking closets. She started in the living room, under the couch cushions, behind the TV stand, on the bookshelf, in the magazines, nothing. She moved to the kitchen, checked the counters, the table, inside the cabinets, even though that made no sense. Nothing. 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 15 minutes passed. 20. Eli came out of the bedroom with tears streaming down his face again. It's not there. Maya, it's not anywhere. Maya felt panic rising in her own chest now. She looked at the clock. 3:45. They'd left the apartment at 7:15 this morning. That was 8.5 hours ago. Where could it have possibly gone? And then she remembered. Last night, after Eli went to bed, she'd stayed up a little bit longer, cleaning up, putting away toys and books, straightening the living room. She'd moved things. Had she moved the folder? She must have. But where had she put it? Think, Maya, think. She'd put the crayons back in their box. She'd stacked the books. She'd folded the blanket. And the folder. The purple folder. She'd picked it up because it was on the coffee table, and she didn't want it to get damaged. She'd moved it to somewhere safe, but where? Maya ran back to the bedroom. Checked her school bag. No. Checked Eli's desk. No. Checked the nightstand. No. The clock ticked forward. 4 o'clock now. In just over 12 hours, Eli would need to turn in that homework. And it was gone. This is bad, Eli said, and his voice was shaking. This is really bad, Maya. Mrs. Patterson said if I don't turn it in tomorrow, I get an F. She said she's calling Mom. She said she's tired of me not doing my work. Maya's chest felt tight. She knew what this would mean. Another phone call home. Another thing for their tired, overworked mom to stress about. Another mark against Eli in a system that already seemed determined to label him as the kid who didn't try, the kid who didn't care, the kid who was falling behind. But Eli did try. He tried so hard, harder than most kids ever had to try just to do regular schoolwork. And last night he'd done it. He'd finished that report. He'd worked for hours. He'd been so proud, and now it was gone. And it was Maya's fault. She'd moved it. She'd lost it, and now Eli was going to pay the price. Maya stood in the middle of their small apartment and felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her shoulders. Eli sat on the couch with his head in his hands, and she could hear him trying not to cry. That sound, the little hiccup he made when he was holding back tears, broke something in her chest. She looked at the clock again. 4 o'clock. The school bus picked them up at 7:20 tomorrow morning. That meant they had roughly 15 hours before Eli would have to face Mrs. Patterson empty-handed. 15 hours felt like no time at all. Maya's mind spun through possibilities. Call their mom at work? No. She was in the middle of her shift taking care of patients. The last thing she needed was to hear about lost homework. She'd tell them to keep looking, and then she'd worry about it all day. Besides, what could she do? She couldn't come home. They couldn't afford for her to leave work early. Ask a neighbor for help? But help with what? Nobody else had seen the homework. Nobody knew where it might be. Plus, their mom had always told them not to bother the neighbors with their problems. Keep searching. They'd already torn the apartment apart. If it was here, they would have found it by now. And then, looking at her brother's hunched shoulders and remembering the pride on his face last night when he'd finished those pages, Maya felt something shift inside her. A decision forming before she even fully understood what she was deciding. Eli, she said quietly, do you remember what you wrote? He looked up at her, his face blotchy and wet. What? In your report? Do you remember what you wrote about tigers? Yeah, I guess. Most of it. Maya walked to the kitchen and grabbed a piece of paper from the drawer where they kept school supplies. She found a pencil. The same kind of pencil Eli always used, the yellow number 2 kind with the pink eraser. She sat down at the kitchen table and looked at her brother. Come here. Tell me everything you remember. Eli just stared at her. What are you doing? We're going to write it again. But that'll take forever. And my hand hurts from gym class today, and I can't remember everything exactly. You don't have to remember it exactly. You just have to remember the important parts. The stuff about tigers. You know all that. You know more about tigers than anybody in your whole class. Eli slowly got up from the couch and came to the table. He stood beside Maya, uncertain. But what if it's different from what I wrote before? So what? Mrs. Patterson never saw the first one. She won't know. And anyway, you're allowed to write about tigers however you want. There's no wrong way to write about something you love. Maya surprised herself with how calm she sounded. Inside, her heart was racing. Inside, she was terrified this wouldn't work. But she couldn't let Eli see that. Okay, Eli said finally. Okay, I said tigers are my favorite animal. Maya wrote at the top of the page, making her handwriting look less neat than normal. Not her careful cursive that she'd been practicing all year. Print letters, slightly wobbly, bigger than she would normally write. The way Eli wrote, tigers are my favorite animal, she wrote, then looked up at him. What next? I said they're the biggest cats in the world. Bigger than lions. Maya wrote it down, slowly, carefully, trying to capture how Eli's handwriting looked, how some of his letters leaned to the right, how his E's were sometimes backwards before he caught himself and fixed them. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. She was doing his homework for him. She was cheating. This was exactly the kind of thing teachers and parents and rules said you should never, ever do. But as she wrote and as she watched Eli's face slowly change from despair to concentration, from defeat to something that looked almost like hope, she couldn't bring herself to stop. They have orange fur with black stripes, Eli continued, getting more confident now, remembering more. And every tiger has different stripes. Like fingerprints. No two tigers are the same. Maya wrote faster, her hand moving across the page. She spelled different wrong on purpose, then crossed it out and wrote it correctly above it, the way Eli would have done after asking her how to spell it. They live in Asia, in forests and grasslands, but there aren't as many as there used to be. Why not? Maya asked, even though she knew. She wanted to hear him say it. Wanted to make sure he really knew this stuff, wasn't just repeating memorized facts. Because people cut down their forests, and hunters killed too many of them. Now they're endangered. Endangered, Maya repeated, writing it down. That's a big word. What does it mean? It means there aren't many left and they might disappear forever if we don't protect them. Good. He understood. He really understood. They kept going. Eli told her about how tigers hunt at night because they can see in the dark. How they're carnivores, which means they eat meat. How they can run really fast but only for short distances. How they're good swimmers, which surprises most people because cats don't usually like water. Maya wrote it all down. Page 1, page 2. Her hand was cramping now. She wasn't used to writing this much this quickly, and definitely not used to writing in a way that wasn't natural for her. Every letter had to be thought about. Every word had to look like Eli wrote it, not her. What else? She asked. You need a little more for the third page. Eli thought hard. I said tigers are important because they're, apex predators. What does that mean? It means they're at the top of the food chain. They don't have predators. They help keep other animal populations balanced. If tigers disappeared, it would mess up the whole ecosystem. Maya was impressed. He really had learned a lot. This wasn't just some rushed assignment he'd thrown together. He'd actually cared about this topic. He'd actually tried. She wrote down what he said, then asked, How do you want to end it? I ended it with something like, tigers are beautiful and strong and we should protect them so they don't go extinct. Maya wrote the final sentence. Her hand was really cramping now, but she was almost done. She looked at the 3 paragraphs she'd written. It wasn't perfect. Eli's original had probably been better organized, more detailed. But this was good. This was solid work. This was a report that showed he knew his subject and cared about it. You had a drawing, right? She asked. Eli nodded. A tiger. With stripes and whiskers, Maya grabbed the crayons. She wasn't much of an artist, but she could draw a simple tiger. Orange body, black stripes, white on the belly. Green grass underneath. She made it look a bit messy, a bit childish, the way a 7-year-old would draw it. Not too good, not too perfect. When she finished, she looked at the completed page. 3 paragraphs, 1 drawing. all in handwriting that looked reasonably close to Eli's own. The clock on the wall said 4:30. They'd done it in half an hour. Last night it had taken 2 hours. But last night Eli had been doing it himself, struggling with each word. Tonight Maya had been the one holding the pencil while Eli did the remembering and explaining. "Here," she said, handing him the paper. "Put this in your folder." Eli took the paper like it was made of gold. He stared at it for a long moment, and Maya couldn't quite read his expression. Gratitude, relief, confusion. Maybe all three. "Maya, you just did my homework." "No," Maya said firmly. "You did the homework. Last night. You spent 2 hours working on it. This is just a replacement copy, because the original got lost, but you wrote it. With your words. Everything on that paper came from your brain, Eli. I was just the pencil." It was a weak argument and they both knew it, but Eli didn't push back. Maybe because he was 7 and didn't fully understand why this was complicated. Or maybe because he was desperate and didn't want to look too closely at the gift he was being given. He found his purple folder, the one that had held the original homework. He slid the new paper inside, careful not to crease it. "What if Mrs. Patterson can tell?" he asked quietly. "Can tell what?" "That it's not the same as what I wrote before." "She never saw what you wrote before. Nobody did except you and me. As far as she knows, this is the homework you worked on all week." Eli nodded slowly. Then he looked up at Maya and his eyes were still a little red, but they weren't scared anymore. "You saved me," he whispered. Maya felt her throat get tight. "Just don't lose this one, okay?" "I won't, I promise. I'll guard it with my life." He put the folder in his backpack and zipped it up. Then he zipped it again, double-checking. Then he put his backpack in the corner of the living room where he could see it, where nothing could happen to it between now and tomorrow morning. Maya watched him do all this and felt a strange mix of emotions churning in her stomach. Pride because she'd fixed the problem. She'd saved her brother from failure and embarrassment and another call home to their exhausted mother. Relief because they didn't have to tell their mom what had happened. Guilt because deep down she knew what she'd done wasn't quite right. But looking at Eli's face, seeing him smile for the first time since he'd come out of school that afternoon, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Sometimes love meant making hard choices. Sometimes protecting someone meant bending the rules. Sometimes being a good sister meant doing something that wouldn't look good in a rule book, but felt right in her heart. She was 10 years old. She shouldn't have to make these kinds of decisions. She should be worrying about her own homework and whether Katie would want to come over this weekend and if they'd have pizza for dinner. But here she was, making decisions, carrying weight, being responsible for more than just herself. "Maya," Eli said, still standing by his backpack like a guard. "Yeah? Do you think I'll get a good grade?" Maya thought about the report she'd just written, thought about all the facts Eli had remembered, all the information he clearly knew and understood, thought about the drawing that showed effort and care. "Yeah," she said, "I think you'll get a good grade," and she meant it. Because even though she'd been the one holding the pencil, it had been Eli's knowledge, Eli's passion for tigers, Eli's understanding that had filled those pages. He'd done the work. She'd just helped him get it onto paper for the second time. The rest of that evening passed in a kind of careful calm. Maya made dinner for both of them, mac and cheese from a box, the kind their mom always kept in the pantry for nights like this when she had to work late. They ate at the kitchen table and Eli kept glancing over at his backpack in the corner, like he needed to make sure it was still there, still safe. After dinner, Maya helped Eli with his reading homework. Just 20 minutes. A few pages from a book about a dog who learned to do tricks. Eli read slowly, sounding out the harder words, but he got through it. Then they watched TV for a bit. Some cartoon about kids who turned into superheroes. Eli laughed at the funny parts and Maya felt herself relax a little. Maybe it would be okay. Maybe everything would work out fine. Their mom came home at 8 looking like she could barely stand. She kicked off her work shoes by the door and collapsed onto the couch with a heavy sigh. "Hey, babies. You two eat dinner?" "Mac and cheese," Maya reported. And Eli did his reading homework. Their mom smiled, eyes half closed. "Good, that's good. You two are so good." She fell asleep right there on the couch within 10 minutes, still in her scrubs. Maya grabbed a blanket and spread it over her. She turned off the TV and told Eli to brush his teeth and get ready for bed. In their room, as they settled into their bunks, Eli's voice came from above. "Maya, What if someone finds out? Maya knew what he meant. Nobody's going to find out. But what if they do? What if Mrs. Patterson knows somehow? How would she know? She never saw your first report. This one has all the same information. You know everything about tigers. If she asks you questions, you'll be able to answer them. Yeah. Okay. You're right. Silence for a moment. Then, Maya, what is what we did? Is it cheating? Maya had been asking herself the same question all evening. Was it cheating? Technically, she'd written his homework. Technically, the hand that held the pencil was hers, not his. But the knowledge was his. The understanding was his. The work, the real work of learning about tigers and caring about them and knowing facts about them, that was all Eli. I don't know, she admitted quietly. Maybe kind of. But you did the homework, Eli. You really did. You just had to do it twice because the first one got lost. Because you lost it, Eli said, but there was no anger in his voice. Just stating a fact. Maya felt that guilt twist in her stomach again. I know, I'm sorry. That's why I helped you. It was my fault, so I had to fix it. Okay, Eli said, and then softer. Thanks. They fell asleep, the apartment quiet except for the distant sounds of the city outside their window. Cars passing, someone's music playing, the normal sounds of their normal life. The next morning came too fast. Maya's alarm went off and she wanted to hide under her covers and pretend it was Saturday. But it wasn't Saturday. It was Thursday. And today was the day Eli had to turn in his report. She woke him up. They got dressed. Their mom made eggs again. Even though she looked like she could barely keep her eyes open. They ate. They packed their bags. They left the apartment. Eli carried his backpack like it contained something precious and fragile. Which Maya supposed it did. His whole day, his whole week really, depended on what was inside that purple folder. The bus ride to school felt longer than usual. Maya tried to give Eli a reassuring smile, but her own stomach was doing flips. What if this didn't work? What if Mrs. Patterson somehow knew? What if Eli got called out in front of his whole class for cheating? They got to school, split up at their usual spot. Maya wanted to tell him good luck, but that seemed like it might make things worse. So she just waved. See you after school, she called. See you, Eli called back. And then he was running toward his building. Backpack bouncing. Maya went to her own classroom and tried to focus on her day. But it was hard. All through math and reading and science, part of her brain was wondering what was happening in room 12. Was Eli turning in his homework right now? Was Mrs. Patterson reading it? What was she saying? Lunch came and went. Maya barely tasted her peanut butter sandwich. Katie asked if she was okay and Maya said she was fine, just tired. Which wasn't exactly a lie. The afternoon dragged on forever. Social studies. Art class. Finally, the bell rang. 3:15. Time to go home. Maya grabbed her stuff and practically ran to their meeting spot outside. She got there first and waited, watching the doors of the primary wing looking for Eli. Other kids streamed out. First the kindergartners with their tiny backpacks, then the first graders, the second graders. Where was Eli? And then she saw him. But something was different. He wasn't walking slow with his head down like yesterday. He was running. Actually running. And he was smiling. Really, truly smiling, Maya. He reached her out of breath, his face flushed. Maya, look. He yanked open his backpack and pulled out the purple folder. Opened it. And there was his report on tigers, the one Maya had helped him rewrite. At the top, in red pen, was a big B+. Next to it, a sticker. A golden star with a smiley face. Maya's heart, which had been tight and anxious all day, suddenly felt light. Mrs. Patterson said it was my best work ever, Eli said, the words tumbling out fast and excited. She said she could tell I really tried hard and that I really understand about tigers. She said my drawing was creative. And she said she's proud of me for finishing it even though writing is hard for me. His smile was so big it looked like it might split his face in half. Maya couldn't remember the last time she'd seen him this happy about school. That's amazing, Eli. I'm so proud of you. She didn't call Mom, Eli added, like that was the best part. She said she's not calling Mom because I did good work. She's going to send home a positive note instead. A positive note. When was the last time Eli got one of those? Maya couldn't even remember. They got on the bus and Eli couldn't stop talking about his day. About how Mrs. Patterson read his report out loud to the class as an example of a good book report. about how another kid said he liked tigers too, and wanted to see the library books Eli had checked out, about how at recess some kids asked him questions about tigers, and he got to answer them and feel smart. Maya listened and felt emotions swirling inside her that she didn't quite know how to name. Happy for Eli, definitely. Relieved that it had worked. But also something else, something complicated. They got home, did their afternoon routine, homework and snacks and TV. When their mom came home that evening between her day shift and night shift, Eli showed her the report before she even got her shoes off. "Mom, look, I got a B+. Mrs. Patterson said it was my best work." Their mom took the paper and Maya watched her face, saw the tiredness fade for just a moment, saw something that looked like hope or pride or maybe just relief that finally something was going right. "Eli, this is wonderful." She pulled him into a hug. "I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it if you kept trying." "Maya helped me," Eli said, and Maya's heart jumped a little. But Eli just meant the normal kind of helping. "She helped me sound out words." Their mom looked at Maya over Eli's head. "Thank you, sweetie. You're such a good big sister." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Because yes, she'd helped him. But she'd helped in ways their mom didn't know about. In ways that would probably disappoint her if she ever found out. But maybe their mom did know, or at least suspected. Because the look she gave Maya was long and thoughtful. Not angry, not disappointed, just knowing. Like she understood more than Eli realized. Like she saw the truth underneath the surface, but all she said was, "You two are a good team." That evening, after their mom left for her night shift and Eli was asleep in his bunk, Maya lay awake in the dark and thought about what had happened over the past 2 days. She'd broken a rule. A pretty important rule, actually. She'd done someone else's homework. She'd helped him cheat, even if the knowledge was his and the work had been his originally. But she'd also saved him. Saved him from an F he didn't deserve. Saved him from another call home about how he wasn't trying hard enough, when he was trying harder than most kids had to try just to keep up. Saved him from another chip at his confidence, another reason to think he was dumb or lazy or bad at school. She'd given him a chance to feel proud, to feel capable, to feel like maybe, just maybe, he could succeed at this school thing that was so hard for him. Was that wrong? Maybe. Probably. The rules would say yes. Absolutely. But looking at how happy Eli had been today, how confident, how he'd stood a little taller and smiled a little bigger, Maya couldn't make herself feel bad about it. Sometimes rules didn't account for real life, for lost homework and exhausted single moms and 7-year-olds who tried their hardest and still struggled. Sometimes the right thing wasn't the thing the rule book said. Sometimes being a good sister meant making hard choices. And Maya had made hers. She heard Eli shift in the bunk above her, heard him sigh contentedly in his sleep, and Maya closed her eyes and let herself feel good about what she'd done. Tomorrow was Friday. Tomorrow they'd turn in different homework and have different days. Tomorrow this would all be behind them. But tonight, her brother was sleeping peacefully, a B+ paper in his backpack, feeling proud and capable and smart, and that, Maya decided, was worth everything. Maya never told anyone the full story of what happened that Wednesday afternoon. Not Katie, her best friend who she usually told everything. Not her teachers. Not even her mom. Though sometimes Maya wondered if her mom had figured it out anyway. That look she'd given Maya when Eli showed her his report. That long, thoughtful look, it had felt like maybe she knew. But if she did know, she never said anything about it. The weeks after that day passed normally. Eli went to school. Maya went to school. They rode the bus. They did homework. Life continued the way it always did in their small apartment on the 4th floor. But something had changed in Eli. Something Maya noticed even though she wasn't sure anyone else did. He started raising, his hand more in class. He told Maya about it on the bus rides home, how he'd answered a question about animals in science class, how he'd volunteered to read a sentence out loud during reading time, how he'd shown another kid the tiger book from the library, and explained facts about tiger stripes. His teacher started sending home more positive notes. Not every week, but once in a while. Eli participated well in science today. Eli stayed focused during reading time. Little things. Small victories. But for a kid who'd mostly gotten notes about what he was doing wrong, these felt huge. Maya watched her brother change bit by bit. He didn't become a perfect student overnight. He still struggled with writing. He still needed help with homework most nights. But something in him had shifted. That one moment of success, that one B-plus paper with the gold star sticker, had shown him that maybe he could do this. Years passed. Maya graduated middle school, then high school. She became a teacher, working at an elementary school in a neighborhood not too different from the one they'd grown up in. Eli graduated high school too. It took him longer than it took Maya. He had to repeat a grade once. But he didn't give up. He kept showing up, kept trying. He ended up going to community college, studied wildlife biology because he still loved animals, still loved tigers. It wasn't easy for him, but he had tutors. He had accommodations. And he had Maya. Always Maya. His big sister who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. One day, years later, Eli called Maya. She was in her second year of teaching by then, grading papers at her kitchen table. "I need to tell you something," Eli said. "What's up?" "I'm graduating, and I got a job offer at the zoo in their conservation program. I'll be working with the big cats, tigers." Of course it was tigers. Her little brother, who'd loved tigers since he was 7 years old, was going to work with them. "I'm so proud of you," Maya said, her voice breaking. "I couldn't have done it without you," Eli said quietly. "Remember that tiger report? Back in second grade?" Maya's breath caught. They'd never talked about it. "Not once in all these years, I remember," she said carefully. "I know what you did," Eli said. "I knew at the time. I was 7, but I wasn't stupid. I knew you wrote it. But everything in that report came from my brain. I'd learned it. You just gave me another chance to show what I knew." He took a breath. "That B-plus was the first time I ever felt smart at school, like I could actually do it. Do you understand what that meant to me? What it changed? Every time I wanted to quit after that, I thought about how you believed in me enough to help me. And I figured if you believed in me that much, maybe I should believe in me too." Maya wiped her eyes. "You did the work, Eli. You're the one who didn't give up. You saved me that day, Maya. You saved me from giving up on myself. And I wanted you to know that before I graduate and start this new chapter." After they hung up, Maya sat at her kitchen table for a long time, thinking about that day so many years ago. About 10-year-old her faced with an impossible choice. She'd made her choice. And sitting here now, knowing where that choice had led, she couldn't regret it. Was it cheating? Technically, yes. But life wasn't always about the ideal solution. Sometimes it was about making the best choice you could with what you had. Sometimes it was about love trumping rules, about doing what felt right in your heart even when your head told you it was complicated. Maya looked at the stack of papers in front of her. 5th grade homework. Each one represented a kid in her class. A kid with their own struggles and strengths, their own story. She thought about how she approached each one of them. How she tried to see past the grades and the test scores. How she tried to see the human being underneath. The kid who was trying. The kid who needed someone to believe in them. That's what she'd given Eli that day. A chance. And he'd taken that chance and built a life on it. Eli graduated college a month later. Their mom and Maya were there, watching him walk across the stage in his cap and gown. He was smiling. That same huge smile he'd had the day he got his B-plus on his tiger report. After the ceremony, Eli found them in the crowd. He hugged their mom first, then turned to Maya. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." Maya hugged her little brother, who wasn't so little anymore, who'd grown into a man who was about to start his dream job working with the animals he loved. "You did this," she told him. "You did all of it." "We did it," Eli corrected, "together." And maybe that was the real lesson from that day so long ago. That family means showing up for each other. Even when it's complicated. Even when the right thing isn't clear. Even when you're just a 10-year-old kid trying to help your 7-year-old brother. Love is messy. It doesn't always look perfect. It doesn't always follow the rules. But it shows up. It catches you when you fall. It gives you another chance when you need one. And sometimes when you're lucky, it changes everything. Maya had saved more than her brother's homework that day. She'd saved his belief in himself. His hope. His future. She'd given him a chance to succeed when he thought he was going to fail, and that one moment had rippled forward through his entire life. The story lived in her heart as a reminder. A reminder that love sometimes asks us to make impossible choices, that protecting someone doesn't always mean following the rules, that sometimes the most important thing we can give someone isn't the right answer, but the belief that they're capable of finding their own answers. Sometimes the most important lessons aren't the ones written in textbooks. They're the ones written in our hearts, the ones about loyalty and sacrifice, about catching people when they fall, about believing in them until they can believe in themselves. That's what Maya had done for Eli. And Eli had taken that gift and built something beautiful with it. A life, a career, a future, and that Maya knew was worth everything.